Well, here we are, another episode of Who is PAG? You may be wondering, who are we going to get to know today? We have the one, and there's only one of them, Greg Hardy in the house.
There's only one, baby.
That's right. Welcome. How
Thank you. Thank you. This is exciting.
It is, actually. It is. I'm happy to be doing these, and even better to be talking to you today.
Right.
So we're here to talk about pens and how we do things and get to know everybody. How long have you been making custom pens, or how did you get started? When was your first attempt, I guess?
Yeah. I've been making pens for about 8 years, and like many of the folks that I'm sure you will be interviewing over the next weeks and months, I started using kits. That was my first experience. I really started doing it because I couldn't afford the pens that I wanted to own. And it's terrible. I still can't afford the pens I want to own. And that's just how that is. But I really started with kits, and it didn't take long for me to decide that the limitations of someone else's design, frankly, I got very good at making kits. I could bang out 24 pens in a weekend.
Yeah.
And they were nicely done, if I do say so myself, and they look like everyone else's nicely done kit pens, and that's not a disparaging remark toward kit pens or their makers. It was frustrating for me, and I needed to do something different. Direct answer to your question, I started making completely custom pens. Pens where I was doing everything but ink delivery about 2.5 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Roughly, not quite 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just finally, a year ago, said enough is enough. That's all I'm going to do. And if that means I don't sell as many pens, then I don't sell as many pens. But I got to draw a line in the sand and step over it. So.
Yep. I completely understand.
You're going to hear this story from everybody, I suspect, or similar stories.
Yeah, it's the being contained and not being able to have total creative control.
Right.
That's a pretty common starting point.
Sure.
So you got started with kits. You transitioned into custom pens. There's a lot of terms going around, custom pens, handmade, many things can be custom, but what does the term handmade really mean to you? What does handmade mean to Greg Hardy?
I'm going to dance around that question.
Okay.
And it's going to be, I think you're going to be impressed with how diplomatically I do not answer your question. The term kitless,
yeah,
about sends me around the bend, because it implies that first there were kits and then there were the other kind, and that's not the case. I know a lot of kit-based makers, people who buy components and just turn barrels, who refer to their pens as custom pens, and I suppose by definition they are, if they're making them one at a time and with their own added touches, they have customized it. I think maybe what we're really talking about is degree of customness, if I can make up a word.
Sure.
And in my case, I'm making everything on my pens except the nib and the feed and the housing, and then if I use a converter.
Sure.
But I think there's maybe the word completely handmade doesn't fit, because I'm not making that nib. So
sure.
You know, I just make my pens, man. That's what I do. I make my pens to the degree that I make them, and work really hard not to offend other guys that are doing the same thing, you know?
Right. Right.
So
I can understand that.
That's what I am.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. If we all got into making nibs, the time and investment involved, no one could afford a pen.
No, that's right.
I mean,
That's right. And you know, there's some great nib makers already out there. They don't make pens, they make nibs, and and I love them all, and yay, everybody wins.
Exactly. Now I know some of this answer, but I want to hear it from you. What things make you special? What techniques are you skilled in, or are make you different than, say, you know, the selection of pen makers out there? I know you're different, but I mean, you're
the things that make me special and different. Oh goodness, I'm glad my wife's not here, or my mother. Yeah. I think probably I know my metalwork is very different than other people's. That's probably the single thing that different than other people's. That's probably the single thing that looks most different about my pens and feels most different about my pens. I don't know that. I think if we went through and stripped all the hardware off of everybody's pens and put them on a table, those of us who make them would say, oh, that's one of Jason Olson's pens, or that's one of Thomas's pens, or John's pens, or because we recognize shape.
Yep.
But in the greater scheme of things, are they really that different? Probably not in an enormous way.
As we're talking about getting to know the Pen Artisan Guild, of which you are a member, what do you think the Pen Artisan Guild is as a benefit for a consumer or our customers? We all share customers. So how does our customer base, how do they benefit from makers coming together and sharing some ideas and maybe critiquing each other, you know, privately? I mean, do you see any benefit there?
Well, I think from the benefits are more obvious to the benefits to the members are more obvious, I think, in that it allows for relationships, and those relationships are what cause us to loosen the grip a little bit on what we know.
Yeah.
And to share techniques and if nothing else, when you've had a bad day in the shop and you've got somebody who actually, you know, you can go in and grumble at your wife all you want, but she just doesn't understand. And I know that you do, for example. From a pen consumer, the end user standpoint, if they can understand a very important thing, this becomes a huge advantage to them. And I think that is that those of us who are serious about our craft, we recognize that we are not really in competition with one another. And I spoke with another pen maker at a big pen show a couple of weeks ago, and he brought a customer to my table.
Yeah.
Walked a customer from his table to mine and said, now look at this. And he picked one of his pens up in his hand that he had with him and one of my pens and said, these are not the same thing. Right. I encourage you to buy both. And if you're only going to buy one, I encourage you to buy mine. But this is another great pen that's very different than my work. And I think once people from that subculture of pen users, especially artisan pen users.
Right.
Maybe that was the word that I wanted to use 3 questions ago.
Yeah.
That artisan pen maker. That's really how I describe myself. Once they realize that we are a group of people who are connected to one another, and as a customer, I can reach out to Jason and say, listen, I'm looking for this. And Jason might say, okay, great, I'll get right started on it. Or he might say, you know what, that's not really what happens in my shop, but you might want to get a hold of Greg Hardy.
Right.
And that sort of thing does happen. And so that, in the end, that's really, really good for our customers, I think.
Yeah, it's a pooled knowledge, and you know, the openness is,
right.
is refreshing and wonderful. I mean,
I agree.
It has helped me, but this is about you. Lastly, I know many people have something they have made that they're extremely proud of, or their favorite. What is, of all the creations I've seen of yours, or you've seen more, what is your favorite? I mean, which one really you said, dang, I like this pen?
I think one that probably the single pen that I made that I'm most proud of, and I'll send you a picture of it for whatever good it does you.
Yeah.
I actually just sold this week after having for about 2 years.
Ooh.
And it was one that I had put, there was a lot of metal work on it, an extensive cap band and clip and finial medallions, and they all had Celtic knot work on them.
Oh.
And to make the story as short as possible, the man I first knew who used a fountain pen was a friend of the family and my art teacher throughout school, and continued to be my friend throughout his life, which ended 2 weeks ago. He passed away. And another student / family friend had been given a gift certificate toward a fountain pen, and that was the one she picked. So that one went home with her. Okay. And it turned into a big meaningful thing, but sometimes we get attached to those pens and hate to see them go, you know?
Yeah.
But this one went for all the right reasons to the very right place. So it's kind of a big victory story.
Yeah. Bittersweet.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But the end full of meaning.
Amen. Yeah, it was.
That makes everything worthwhile.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. That's why we keep doing it every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything from your perspective that we've glossed over, missed, or that makes Greg Hardy interesting?
We're back to that, aren't we?
I'm fishing a little bit, but you know,
we need a whole series of interviews, Jason.
we gotta focus on just pen.
I understand. I'm really glad that, for your sake, that my son isn't here right now. He works in the shop a few days of the week, and you would have been in for a really bad version of Wayne's World, I'm afraid. No, I think I'm glad you're doing this. You know, talking to these folks that are you know, the hours we put into our shop. I retired from my career in education a year and a half ago, and I'm in my shop between 50 and 60 hours a week. It's a big part of my life, and it's nice to be able to tell people about what I do, and maybe to have some new people learn about my work. And this is an exciting thing. I appreciate you going to the effort.
That's what we're about.
Right on.
What you just described to me, Greg, the amount of time you put into the shop isn't just counting hours. The way you describe it, you're there because it's your passion. You love doing it.
Right.
And
Well,
it shows.
and my wife comes out and says, "Are you going to stop and come in for dinner? Or are you going to bed tonight?"
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And
I've gotten a few messages
I,
from you at
uh-huh.
odd hours. I mean, like, what's Greg doing up?
Yeah, I know.
Anyway,
All right.
we have talked to Greg. We have learned a lot. Greg does have fabulous metal work. It is, I find it fascinating because it is different than things I do. So
Mhm.
it's great. Check out Greg, uh, Facebook, Instagram, website, artypens.com. And we hope you all enjoyed meeting another guild member, and we'll be back talking to some more folks in future episodes. Thanks everybody for watching, and have a great day.
Thanks.